Greetings and welcome to Elect Connect, a candidate forum brought to you by the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. I'm Mary Morgan, the Chamber's Director of Advocacy and Public Policy. We'll be talking with Geoff Bradley. He's running in the Democratic Party primary for a seat on the Monroe County Circuit Court Division 1. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsors for Elect Connect. Without this, we would not be able to do this work. And those sponsors are German American Bank, Bunger & Robertson, City of Bloomington, Hoosier Energy, Smithville, and Indiana University. And again, we'd like to now welcome Geoff Bradley, who is running in the Democratic Party primary as a candidate for the Monroe County Circuit Court Division 1. Welcome,
Well,
Geoff.
thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It looks like we've lost your video, but you're back now. Good.
Okay.
I'd like to start out by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for this office.
Sure. Well, I am running for this office because of my involvement in public service. I've been working in public service throughout my legal career. When I graduated from IU Law back in 1994, I served as a deputy prosecuting attorney in Ohio. I've worked at the University of Kentucky, as well as working here in Monroe County in the prosecutor's office. And one of the things throughout my career has been involved in the community and involved in public service. So when the opportunity presented itself to run for judge, I thought it was a great combination of working again with the community in a different fashion, serving the public and in this role. And I thought that the skills and ability that I've developed over the years would make me suited to serve this position. So that's a kind of a brief version of why I would be interested in running for judge.
Well, you actually previewed one of our next questions, which was to talk about how your background and experience make you best suited for this role. And maybe you could just elaborate on what you've already said a little bit. Sure,
no problem. Well, one of the things in my career is the adaptability and the different type of work I've done throughout. When I was an assistant prosecuting attorney in Ohio, in Clinton County, Ohio, I worked as the juvenile court prosecutor. I also handled delinquent tax foreclosure work for the county. Also served in the federal court system, handling the bankruptcy filings that our county prosecutor's office assisted with as well. And then I work with the Child Support Enforcement Division as a backup attorney to assist in those cases.
Looks like we might have lost connection with Geoff. We'll hang on for a couple minutes to see if he comes back. Still hoping he can. Oh. Geoff, are you there?
Yeah, it looks like we had a little crash there. Sorry.
That's all right. That's what this Zoom technology is teaching us, to be flexible.
Sure.
No
problem.
I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
No problem. And I'm not sure where I got lost, so I'll just start again.
Okay.
When we're talking about my prior background experience, when we graduated in 1994 from IU Law School, I worked as the assistant prosecuting attorney in Clinton County, Ohio. So in that role, my primary job responsibilities was as the juvenile prosecutor, but it was a smaller county, 35,000 person county in the smaller office. So you actually held a lot of different hats. So I worked with our tax foreclosure division with the county, as well as when they had bankruptcy cases, I was licensed to do the filings within the federal court system for our county. As also, we wrote our own appeals. So I handled appeals and I argued appeals in the 12th Appellate Court of Appeals in Ohio. And then also you handled a lot of different boards and commissions and the like. So you had a variety of roles. In our county in Ohio, what we think of as CHINS cases in Indiana for abuse, neglect, dependent cases was actually handled within our prosecutor's office. So I was a backup attorney and we shared a similar caseload. So unlike Indiana, it was in one agency. So you did that type of work, a lot of other with boards and commissions and assisting as well. Then when I spent 2 years at the University of Kentucky, I was the assistant director for student rights and responsibilities. So I supervised and managed the residence halls student conduct process. And I also supervised all of the hearing officers who handled disciplinary cases. I was also an administrative hearing officer for disciplinary cases in the residence halls. I supervised, they had night desk clerks. So they had staffing throughout the evening. So in all the buildings at the University of Kentucky's undergraduate housing and apartments, I was supervised all of the student supervisors and all the staff. And I also was involved in the training for the disciplinary functions, and I was liaison with the police department, the fire department, and served on a variety of committees there. And then, when I came back to Indiana, I worked 2 years for David Ferguson at Ferguson Law as a law clerk, and had an opportunity to work with civil caseload there with everything from contract to small claims cases as a law clerk as I transitioned into being licensed in Indiana. And then I joined the prosecutor's office in 2005. So I've served as a misdemeanor prosecutor, and I'm currently a felony prosecutor. So with all of my experiences, one of the things I always note to people is the flexibility, adaptability, and things I've learned and had to work with in different places. So I was asked after I left Indiana, I went to Ohio, learned Ohio law, practiced in Ohio, advocated in that area. When I went to Kentucky, you're working with higher education law and different federal guidelines, and then working back in Indiana, you're working in a different legal setting, as well as when you're dealing with juvenile caseload, adult caseload, abuse, neglect, dependency caseloads. That's also a different expectation. So one of the things I've always prided myself on was the ability to be flexible, work in different areas, work with different groups of people, and adapt to the different demands of the jobs. Because one of the things you'll see is in a judicial aspect is you're going to be asked to not only handle a courtroom, you're going to supervise a staff, you're going to be responsible to work within a team, within the board of judges to reach certain goals for the county, to make us the best judicial system and improve the judicial system that we currently have. So, when I look back on all those experiences, and, I was served on a variety of boards and commissions as well in Indiana and Ohio, that's allowed me to work within the community and work in different structures and different aspects. So it's I think I have a pretty broad range of activities and involvement and different opportunities where I've had a chance to not only be in the courtroom, but in an administrative role and in some policy making and some financial decision making roles. I think when I look back at University of Kentucky, one of the things is I helped develop and adapt our student disciplinary system to make it online. And when I was there, we were able to do that, but we did it with no budget. So you had to create and work with the university's technical department to make it come to life with very limited financial resources. So areas like that is give me an opportunity to really do a little bit more than what it would look like on the surface of just being maybe just a prosecutor in most people's minds.
Okay, that's great. What would you say are the biggest challenges facing our local judicial system, and how would you address that if you're elected?
Well, as I indicated in response to the survey, one of the things is always we deal with access to justice and access to the court system for everyone. And you're always looking for ways to improve our system and making things more accessible, quicker, and really delivering what the needs of the community are. And so that's one of the areas that you do look at that I think we're always going to keep working on and keep focusing on. And that spirals into a lot of different areas. And one of the things we always want to be mindful of is when we're looking at that is they have undertaken the consultants are coming in and should be completing a report for the county as to what their observations and recommendations are about although it's entitled a criminal justice assessment, it's really, if you think about it a little more broader sense, is like, what do we do with our court systems? Because they all impact what recommendations that they make, and then what we do with those recommendations are going to impact not only the criminal aspect, but civil courtroom as well. And so when we're looking at that, the thing I want to be mindful of when we look at it is as being a part of the board of judges, I'll have an opportunity to we'll see what those reports are. I would anticipate we're going to get that report sometime this year. And that would probably be a 2021 activity for not only the county commissioners, but the county council as to where do we put our funding? What areas need to be developed? And, you think the most simplistic idea is where is everything going to be housed? Is everyone going to be in one location, or is the recommendation going to be multiple locations? And if you talk multiple locations, then you start talking about, do we have the communications infrastructure in place to allow for remote court hearings, access to different individuals from different locations? So I'm looking forward to seeing I've been to a couple of their meetings, and I've read some of their reports in years past, but they've covered a great deal of areas from what type of programming that you want to have to assist individuals, to how the structure of the facility. And one of the things we always want to be aware of is, the county council is going to deal with the funding aspect. County commissioner is going to be dealing with a lot of decision making as well. And then you have a variety of agencies. So that always ties back to my prior experience working in a lot of different teams and working for different areas. That's what we're going to have to draw upon. So I'd be interested to see what they have to say about those programs and the like, because I think what we want to always do is make sure we're adding programs that are going to be best for our community. So we're always going to look to support programs. We're on the forefront of working with problem-solving courts. So if we're looking at ways to enhance those courts, to make them better, and find other courts that would be more appropriate or to add to our community, then we want to looking for that aspect. And then really when you talk about with the access to the courtroom or to justice for individuals, is how are we making things accessible for, we have different organizations that counsel in the court, different family court programmings that exist. Are we making the best use of space for them? Are we making the best use of resources for them? Are there things that this assessment is going to come back and talk about that might give us better ways to approach a problem? The nice thing about that group is they've done consultation throughout the country. So they might have some ideas of things that we're doing well, and also about things that we could enhance or improve. So that's one that we always wanted to keep our eye on, making sure that we're dealing with that. And over the years, we've noticed it, particularly with the opioid crisis and other substance abuse concerns, social mental health issues, substance abuse disorders. Are we doing what we can to have services in place to address the problem from the court systems aspect? And that's where you talk about, again, with the problem-solving courts. Do we have things in place dealing with, again, we shifted to the civil courtroom, do we have programs in place, ways to address and approach these challenges, because they impact every aspect of the court system. Because if you're talking about a person with a substance issue going on with them, maybe it touches on them in the criminal courtroom. It might touch upon them in the civil courtroom, where it has to do with their ability to positively parent and have a strong family situation. It can impact their ability to maintain housing. It can impact their ability to have a job. So you want to do you have a holistic approach, a global approach to making sure that we're doing things that address a lot of areas that will come across the court system. I know most folks, when they think about the court system, think criminal court, but I think we always want to be mindful of what comes into the family court setting and different civil arenas that will impact it. So, I think we want to make sure we're dealing with that aspect, and we're also dealing with issues that our community are identifying. But we've seen with the opioid crisis, that's a situation the last few years, the different summits and the different approaches have been trying to deal with. And I would anticipate that when the report comes out and the Board of Judges and the county council, they're going to always keep working to implement services that are going to help address in areas that our community thinks are important.
Well, I think you've already touched on some of the answers to the next question, but I wanted to talk specifically about jail overcrowding, which is kind of a chronic issue in Monroe County. Other than the things you've already discussed, is there any other way that you would like to work to address that specific problem?
Well, I think that would be one to where it'd be similar to with working within the Board of Judges. I believe when we get the report that comes out from the consultants, they're going to have probably pretty wide-ranging observations and recommendations, everything from the layout of the facility to what is the facility. Because really a question that's going to also be asked is, it's identified as, it's I think correctly stated as a correctional facility. So what do we want the facility to be doing? Is it focused on a heavy treatment facility? Is it a work release facility? Is it a jail facility? Is there any program in that facility? So we want to step back and look at, when they make the recommendations and observations, what do we do with whatever space we're going to have? And how will that space work with the jail, sheriff's department, that organization, the county commissioners, different agencies we work with, Board of Judges and the like, and outside organizations, is what do you want everything from when I looked at the work that they've done in the past, is everything from the layout of the facility to what do you offer in the facility? How many people do you have in the facility? What's the best organizational structure for the facility? So I think what I would want to do is be a part of that team and with the Board of Judges to, I think this report gives an opportunity to just kind of step back, look at it from a 10,000 foot perspective, look down on it. It's just like, what do we have? What are we working with? What type of things can we do throughout? They might come back and say, Monroe County, you're perfect. Everything you have and what you have is 100%. There's no need to make any changes. But, assuming that we're not going to have that kind of response, is what do they think we could do to make things better for our community? And, you see when you talk about the area of like overcrowding, it's just like, what's the number? How is it laid out? How do you make it to where it is not only a facility that takes care of folks? And then when I say take care of folks, you're talking about, are their health needs being taken care of? Are their mental health needs being taken care of? Are their medical needs being taken care of? Do they have the space? Do they have the ability to interact with family or in the court system? So, we want to work with all of the different agencies to make sure that we're all communicating, making sure we're all on the same page as to what's the best approach and what will be the best for the community. And the jail is handled obviously by the jail commander through the sheriff's department. So you want to make sure there's active dialogue with all the agencies, with the county commissioners, the county council, sheriff's department, and making sure that we're all working as a team. So that if our goal is X, we're all talking the same language, and not everyone's out, we want to do this, another group wants to do that, and no one's talking. I think that would frustrate the community, as if you have this analysis, this report come back, and then we have multiple people talking different ideas and no one talks to each other. So I think when we're talking to, you've seen it's some flexibility that is needed always. One of the areas I think you raised in the question was what we're dealing with COVID. The courts have had to have some flexibility as to how do we best run things so that not only take care of all of our constitutional and legal mandates, but also take about people's health and safety. And so, different changes have been made. And, as a unified court, being a part of the board, it would just give me an opportunity to bring my experiences and things I've worked with in different organizations and the like, and being part of that discussion. So that, kind of looking forward to that. Don't really have a really specific answer to A, B, and C should happen, but I'm excited about the opportunity. I'm probably would be able to join the board at a point in time where we're going to be taking a new step for this county as to, well, the report's in, now what do we do with it? And, with any reporting, I think you've probably experienced with the chamber and everyone else, is if we spend the time to do a report, let's make sure we take the time to look at it. And if we have an opportunity to implement things, let's, take advantage when we can. there's no reason to execute a report if we're just going to put it on a shelf and ignore it for 5-10 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So.
Well, this is somewhat related. Obviously, the circuit court doesn't operate in a vacuum. So are there things that you think the community could do to support our judicial system? And similarly, at the state level, what changes would you advocate for?
For the community level, one of the things we want to make sure is actually a two-way street, is to making sure we're taking the opportunity to communicate with our community as to what the court does and what the role of the judges are, and helping with that education aspect, because I would be fair to safely to guess is that a lot of people don't have a really good understanding of what happens in the courtroom and the court system. And a lot of people, when they go in the court system, it's their first time. They're coming in for maybe a civil bad check situation or some type of complaint going on. And so folks don't have a great idea what's happening. So we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of communicating with people in our community, making sure they understand what is here, what exists, what programs exist. And then when we talk about with the community involvement, you're probably making sure it's like when there's opportunities to partner, that we're working together to partner with those different resources. One of the benefits we have here is we have the law school down the street. So there's a lot of different clinics and a lot of different programs that have originated or partnered through, protective order projects and the like, that's come from with the law school. So we want to take advantage of having that relationship with IU and also with Ivy Tech. Is there programs in place that we can, work with them to perhaps areas that are lacking, and something we talk about a lot of aspects has to do with funding. And is there opportunities to partner with these organizations to identify ways in which, law students can help, people in the community can help, volunteer time or volunteer to be here. We're talking about counsel in the court, we're talking about volunteer opportunities for folks to come assist. So you want to make sure we're communicating with the Bar Association, that you're communicating with different organizations in town so that they can participate as needed. So, you're really, what the community aspect is, we probably want to make sure we're taking the steps so the community knows what's here and what's available. And then with the community then is to work with, is there ways to integrate different community organizations or community, networks or partnerships that could help us meet some of our needs. And then sometimes, it's everything from simply where you might be in a community that you write grants, and you might be a person who's like, I like to help out with identifying ways in which we can support initiatives for our youth and young people in our community who are under 18, or for that 18 to 25 range, that there's programming out there that you might be familiar with. But we want to make sure that everybody's aware and talking back and forth, so that someone's not sitting on the side and just like, oh, I would have helped if I would have known that this is the type of thing that the court system like to offer. So when we're thinking about with the state level in conjunction with this, is always looking for ways to, Monroe County is always at the forefront of volunteering. We're the pilot county, one of the pilot counties for the pretrial release program that came about. And if I recall correctly, I don't think we were one of the ones identified. I think Monroe County volunteered to be a part of it. And so we want to work on the state level to always be out there to assist and be involved in different programs. And you want to make sure the state is helping us identify and certify different programs and partnerships that would work for us. So, we're lucky to have the mental health court, the veterans court, the reentry court to join our drug court. But, there's always more opportunities to help. So we want to make sure that we're working with the state and identifying ways in which can we be a pilot program for X, Y, and Z? And if so, what type of opportunities can the state provide us? So, and then you always want to work with the state as in, helping us identify best practices and working in different areas that would help their court system. Again, not only on the criminal aspect, but for the civil aspect. But I think we're lucky we have a great resource at IU and Ivy Tech. And, if we continue to partner with those to bring in, because, if you walk, I don't know if you've been into the Justice Building, but when you walk through on certain days, you'll see a lot of law students that are there volunteering and being involved in different programs. There's different community programs that exist that have tables and the like. So, again, with the report that comes out, they might have some recommendations as to ways we can enhance, improve, and expand their programming.
Great. Well, you anticipated the next question, which is, as you acknowledged, outside of the legal community, most folks don't know exactly what goes on at the Monroe County Circuit Court or how it operates. What would you think the general public should know about the court system locally?
I think one of the ones with the court system locally is one, and they're looking at the aspect of what services and programs exist. And so one of the areas would be is the different problem-solving courts. I just had a conversation recently with a individual regarding the case, and we were talking about mental health treatment court, and they weren't familiar with it. And we talked about what the goals and what the services and how it's structured. And that was an area that they thought was really important for their case, the direction they wanted their case to go in, that they weren't familiar with it. And even though I deal with it on a day-to-day basis, I believe a lot of folks just don't know that all these problem-solving courts exist, or if they heard of them, they don't understand exactly what the structures are. And I think it's really important. It's like, yes, these are programs that are in to provide a different approach, a different treatment aspect, but there's also some expectations and accountabilities that exist in all these programs. So it's not as if you're not having a responsibility placed upon you and expectations placed upon you and getting treatment and help. So, you really want folks to be aware that our court system is always advancing and trying to find different ways to provide solutions to problems that we're facing in our community. And so one of the areas we want to make sure people understand is, like, what are our different problem-solving courts? Why do they exist, and what do they provide? And then I think, too, is for folks to understand what resources that are available they can get to online. If you go to our court website, of like what type of things that they can apply for themselves individually, and some direction and paperwork and that aspect. But I think most people are interested in the criminal court system as to, well, what happens to the cases and what happens to people. So I think it would be important for folks to kind of be brought up to speed as to not only what programs and services are there, but what we're trying to do when it's all said and done with each individual case.
Okay. Well, that was our concluding question. Are there any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
Well, first of all, again, thank you for this opportunity to be here. For those who are listening, obviously, thank you for everyone who's on the first responder, on the front line aspect in dealing with our crisis currently, and everyone who's impacted by it. It's a lot going on currently, and that's an understatement on my part, that people are dealing with on a variety of levels, personally, financially, professionally, health, medically, family. And so, just want to think about all those folks out there for all the work they're doing and the challenges that we're all going through. With the campaign, I would just encourage everyone, we have the opportunity, and I think it's something that you will stress to everyone, this is our opportunity to vote. And this is, everyone has an opportunity, and this is a chance to have your voice heard as to what you want, different parts of your government, those who work as public servants for you. I would just ask everyone out there, if you have an opportunity to, review my information, review my website, learn more about me, or just ask me questions. I want to serve this community. I want to serve this community in this role as a judge. I believe I have the background experience and the capability to positively impact this court system. So I would just ask for, when you're making a decision to vote, that you consider my name.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate the fact that you've taken some time to talk with us. A reminder that we've been talking with Geoff Bradley. He's going to be running in the Democratic Party primary as a candidate for Monroe County Circuit Court Division 1. One final thank you to our Elect Connect sponsors, German American Bank, Bunger and Robertson, City Bloomington, Hoosier Energy, Indiana University, and Smithville. We certainly appreciate their support. And finally, please vote on June 2nd in the primary elections. This year, all voters, all registered voters are eligible to vote by mail, and we would really encourage you to do that. You can find out more information about how to do that at monroecountyvoters.us and on the Chamber's website, chamberbloomington.org/2020/primary-election. Thanks again for joining us.